In this video, we're going to print the trips on our page and add some styling to them. So we're going to use an echo statement like this. And we're going to place some HTML code inside. Just to make it easy for us to use the elements inside the row variable, I'm going to create variables and store values inside them. So for instance, we're going to need the departure, okay, which is the element of key departure inside our row array. So it's more practical to just create a variable departure and store the element of key departure inside it. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the same for the destination. We already have the frequency and time, right? So we will need the price. And also we're going to need the number of seats available. Okay, and finally, we will need the trip ID. Okay, so the reason why we need the ID is, as we said earlier, we will need to store the ID of the trip inside the edit button in a data attribute, because when you click on that button, we want to know which trip we are talking about, okay? So that when we open the module, we show the right trip inside our form, all right? So I'm going to create a variable trip ID. And in our row, it's going to be the element of key trip ID. Okay, so now we are ready to echo our trip. So to echo the trip, we're going to use a bootstrap row. And then inside the row, we're going to use the grid system. Basically, we will divide the row into 3 elements. So the first element is going to show the journey details, departure, destination, date and time, okay. The second part is going to show the price and the number of seats available. And the third part is going to show the edit button. So I'm going to use 8 columns for the first bit, 2 columns for the second, and 3 columns for the last. And we're going to do this for small devices. You will notice that if we go to extra small devices, okay, then we are utilizing the full width of the page. Okay. So we're going to have of class row. So I used double quotes, okay, to wrap the content so that I can use the variable straight away inside. So then we're going to have 3 divs, okay. So the first one is going to take 8 columns. So we're going to give it a class. The second one is going to have 2 columns. And the third one is going to have 2 columns. Okay, so I'm going to add an extra class for each one, okay, to add some styling later. So I'm going to add a class journey to the first one, another one price for the price div, and well, okay, let's leave the last one for later. So let's add content to the first div, okay? So you're going to have departure and then the value of our departure. So let's do that. Okay, so we can add some styling to the departure word on its own. So I'm going to place it inside a span and give it a class, okay, to make it easy to add styling later. Okay, and then we're going to have another div for the destination, very similar to this one. And the value there is destination. Okay, and we're going to have a dot at the end, right there. Okay, and then we're going to have a div for the date and time. Okay, so the value here is going to be time. And let's give it a class for styling. Let's call it time. Okay, so that's our first div, right? Now let's move to the second one, the price div. So first we want to show the price. So you're going to have a div for that. Okay, and let's give it a class price. We come back later to all these classes to add some styling. Then we're going to have the seats. So we're going to have a div where we're going to write per seat. So let's give it a class per seat. And finally, another div for the number of seats left. Okay, so we're going to write the number and then space left. And let's give it a class seats available. Okay, so that's it for the second div. Now let's move to the last one. So inside the last one, we're going to have a button, okay, our edit button. So it just says edit inside. So let's style this button using some classes. So we're going to use the button class, the green class to add the green color. And also let's make it large using the button large class. Okay. Now, since we need to be able to open the module using this button, so you're going to add the data toggle attribute and the data target. So we'll need to set the data toggle to module as we did with the other buttons, opening modules, and the data target is going to be the ID of the module that we would like to open. So we are opening the edit module. So the ID of that module is edit trip module. All right. And we need to have a data attribute where we're going to store the trip ID. So you can call the data attributes anything you like. So I'm going to call it data trip ID. You can replace trip ID by anything. Okay, but just make sure that you call it data something. Okay, so that it's recognized as a data attribute. So I'm going to set this data attribute to the trip ID, which we stored inside that variable. Okay, so you've got our edit button. So now let's save and try our code. Okay, so we can see our trips. Okay, we still need some styling. So you can see the departure, destination, the date and time. Okay, we're missing the frequency. So right after time, we need the frequency. So you're gonna have a div. I'm just gonna place the frequency inside with a dot. Okay, let's leave it like this. We don't need that class. So let's save, refresh. All right, so you've got the frequency now. Okay, perfect. All right, now let's add some styling to our elements. So let's start with the div itself showing one trip. So let's give it an extra class trip so that we can style it using that class. So I'm going to go to the head element and just add some styling there. Okay, you can delete the styling that we used for the notes. Okay, we don't need those anymore. So let's style the trip div using the trip class. So first, let's add a border. Okay. So we're gonna go for a width of 1 pixel. Go for a solid border, and I'm going to choose a gray color. Okay. Now let's add some padding. Let's go for 10 pixels. Okay, that looks all right. And let's add some border radius. Okay, let's have a nice curve there. So let's go for 10 pixels. Okay, and just to make sure we separate the trips, let's add some margin. So let's go for 10 pixels at the top and bottom, and auto left and right. Okay, that looks all right. Now we want to add a nice background color like this using some linear gradient. So we're going to use the background property and then use the linear gradient function. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what colors we've got there. so let's pick that one. Okay. So let's save and refresh. Okay, this is a minus sign. Okay, that looks all right. All right, so now let's move to the other elements. So we're going to go to the departure and destination and just increase the font size. So I'm going to select both of them using the classes we have given to them. So we gave them a couple of classes, departure and destination. So I'm going to select both of them. And let's increase the font size to something like 2 ems. Let's see how it looks. All right, so that didn't make any difference. Let's have a quick look at what we've written in the PHP file. Oh, we haven't given them any classes yet. Okay, so let's try again. Okay, that looks better. Okay, let's reduce it slightly to 1.5. Okay, that's all right. Now let's just increase the font size of the price. Okay. So let's go for the same font size as the departure and destination. So I'm just going to select the price in the same line. Okay, so we're missing the currency in the price. So let's add a $sign right there. Okay. All right, now let's just take off the price class from there. So we put it twice, and let's just increase the font size for the price. So I'm going to select it on its own for now. I'm going to go for something like 2 ems, and I'm going to do the same thing for the number of seats available, and we're going to go for a smaller one for per seat, or leave it as default. So let's save and refresh. All right, that looks all right. Okay, we can just make the number of seats available slightly smaller. Okay, that looks all right. All right, so in the next video, we're going to write code to edit a trip and delete a trip.